Young Thugg is scheduled to appear in court today in Georgia on related charges. The rapper, whose real name is Jeffrey Lamar Williams, was one of 28 people named in an indictment in that state.
The barrage of sending 2 people to the hospital, and it lands a rapper in jail. 7 Sheldon Fox with the exclusive.
Police and prosecutors say Pooh Shiesty was part of the group that ended up in this parking lot that October afternoon where the flew.
2 men are in jail this morning, including an up-and-coming Florida rapper. Both men are charged in a double. Police are saying the 2 staged a crime scene to make it look like a drive-by.
Being from the streets, it's easy for rappers to commit crimes that hurt their future rap careers. While sitting in jail, many forget what rappers are actually in jail at this current time. Starting out with K-Flock. While sitting in jail facing life inside a prison for the passing of Oscar Hernandez, Flock has now recently been slammed in a 40-page indictment on RICO charges in New York City. As for the original crime on December 23rd, 2021, New York rapper K-Flock, otherwise known as Kevin Perez, was involved in an altercation with an Uber Eats delivery boy named Oscar Hernandez. Flock was seen walking down the street in New York City. K-Flock, wearing the blue designer coat while also wearing a shiesty mask as well, was walking past a barber shop staring on the inside at a man named Oscar Hernandez. With the two having straight eye contact for roughly 10 seconds, Oscar Hernandez was then seen stepping out of the barber shop and then start yelling at K-Flock while he was walking away. Witnesses claim that Oscar screamed at K-Flock asking, "Hey, what are you looking at?" As K-Flock is then seen turning around and walking towards Oscar, a small argument would begin brewing up between these two on the street. Oscar Hernandez would make a slight movement like he's almost grabbing something from out of his waistband, which then led to K-Flock actually pulling a firearm from out of his waistband and using it towards Hernandez, with it connecting towards Oscar Hernandez while he was trying to run away to the barbershop for help. He was sadly too late, and Oscar Hernandez would sadly pass on the street in New York City from the injuries that he sustained from K-Flock. All that was left at the scene was shell casings as well as Hernandez's slides that he was wearing on this day. With K-Flock wearing a shiesty mask at the time, the NYPD posted the photo of K-Flock on the sidewalk with the blue designer jacket on social media. Fans quickly realized that this is the exact outfit K-Flock was flexing on Instagram Live a day prior, and the NYPD then knew exactly who was responsible for this crime within roughly 15 minutes. This then resulted in K-Flock turning himself into the NYPD on December 23rd, and he is now facing charges of the first degree, as K-Flock is currently being held on Rikers Island Jail, and him and his lawyers are doing anything possible to have him released, as his own lawyer revealed recently that Flock was using self-defense.
When the guy hits the ground and is found, he's got a loaded that was in his pocket that his hand was on at the time. We consider that to be self-defense.
So he did keep him in self-defense.
That's what the allegation is. I don't want to talk too much about the details of the case,
Okay.
but the government claims that he pulled the. But at the same time, the person that was on the ground had his hand on a illegal loaded, apparently about Kevin.
Okay. So without saying too much, you're arguing obviously self-defense. That's the crux.
That could be one of the arguments, self-defense. And I would say to the public, somebody's walking up to you with a loaded, it's pretty clear is going to use it, with a criminal record a mile long. Do you want to get, or do you not want to?
As his case is a lot different than YNW Melly's. As on October 26th, while leaving a recording studio in Florida, YNW Melly, Sack Chaser, Juvie, and Bortland all hopped inside of their Jeep to begin driving home, as YNW Bortland would share during his 2018 interrogation the following moments after.
Okay, tell me what happened.
Man, I was playing music, getting off the exit. I was already getting sleepy, almost home, you know what I'm saying? And just out of nowhere, I just heard, you know what I'm saying? So, and I ducked down, you know what I'm saying, in the car.
Actually,
and I almost crashed the car.
Let me back you up a few minutes. Where were you coming from?
I was coming from the studio, from Fort Lauderdale.
Fort Lauderdale studio. Which way did you take?
I took I-75, 595 to 75.
Expressway,
yeah.
Then you took 75 South?
As YNW Borland reveals that once getting inside of the vehicle and exiting the recording studio, they were driving home before quickly being pulled over to the side of the road by a rival street member, where there would be two men in the back seats using firearms towards Borland's vehicle against Melly, Sack Chaser, and Juvie. However, it's very clear to officers YNW Borland's story is not adding up to anything. As Borland is trying to stay confident about his story, trying to make it seem realistic, he would end up being caught in his lie.
Here's the hard part where we're having a hard time to understand, is that we shut down that entire area and we had officers shoulder to shoulder walk it out. They didn't find as much as one shell casing. They didn't find one piece of glass. Nothing. Nothing to what you said adds up. And it's hard.
Bro, I'm telling you, bro, that's the class.
I mean, for whatever reason, your two friends, are these your good friends?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These my like,
these your two, I'm assuming close friends.
Yeah, we got.
And you're doing them an inservice by not telling us the truth.
I'm telling you the truth, sir. I don't like. How? What do you want?
How do you make shell casings disappear?
I don't know. How can I tell you about a shell case?
As it is very clear that YNW Borland is lying. So what is the actual truth? Well, during YNW Melly's trial, the truth would be revealed, which goes on to state that while driving home, YNW Borland allegedly pulled over the vehicle on a side street while Juvie and Sack Chaser were sleeping in the front in the passenger seat. YNW Melly would then use a firearm and do this crime, as the evidence proving so all came from Sergeant Williams that would reveal after investigating the vehicle they were driving in, there is zero way this could have been a drive-by, just like Borland stated.
My determination was that this is not a drive-by, and it's based upon this picture here, which is a very good picture to describe it. All of these rounds are done. One is done at a stationary position. At a stationary position when all but one of these rounds are going in. The one round that has some movement in it, which is round site L here, the actually moving in that to create the little bit of a that you see there.
How many rounds were inside of the car?
3.
And can you exclude the for Mr. Williams and Mr. Thomas as coming from outside of the car?
Yes. From the driver's side back seat.
As to the shot that Christopher Thomas, where did that come from?
Driver's side back seat.
As Sergeant Williams is guaranteeing the crime must have occurred from the man sitting in the back left seat of the vehicle, this is then when YNW Juvie's mother was then called to the stand to confirm where YNW Melly was seated.
Are you related to one of the victims in this case?
Yes, I am.
How so?
I'm his mother.
And who is that?
Christopher Thomas.
Positive 21915. Ms. Phillips, did you see who entered into the occupants who entered into that gray Jeep?
Mm-hmm.
And is that a yes?
Yes.
Do you recognize where your son entered that gray Jeep?
Yes.
Which seat, if you can identify for the jury?
He got in the back seat on the right hand side.
Did you recognize the individual that got into the back seat on the left side, the rear driver's side?
Yes.
And who was that individual?
Jamel.
And Jamel, is that the defendant, Jamel Demons?
Yes, ma'am.
As this even resulted then in YNW Juvie's father saying,
from the day one, I believe that Melly was responsible for my son on October 26th when I first heard the story, because his explanation when I finally talked to him and Cortland on a FaceTime, their response and how they was reacting, they showed no remorse. They didn't act like they was grieving, like they lost a best friend or nothing. They was, in my opinion, they was in the best spirits. They act like they didn't have to take a loss at all. That's how I took it. And then when I was talking to them, I still had in the back of my mind that something's not right.
As later on in the Melly trial, it was found on YNW Melly's cell phone a confession text message to doing the crime.
The PC Gambino account asked him if he was okay, and his response was, "I did that," and placed a smiley face emoji.
And the next message from 10/26/2018 at 16:02, the YNW Melly count says what?
After that, SHHHH.
And could you please stand and point on the right side of the screen exactly which part you're saying where the YNW Melly account says, I did that?
I did that. This is the thread ID. This is the text. This is the author. And this is the recipient.
With YNW Melly's upcoming retrial, the truth will be revealed soon, as YNW Melly currently sits in jail looking at a double life sentence in prison. However, for young Thugg, his situation is a lot different. You see, on May 9th, 2022, the YSL mansion would be raided by Special Forces police teams in the FBI. With 28 members of YSL being arrested at the scene for RICO charges, an FBI sergeant took young Thugg into the middle of the street and read his charges of RICO, firearm charges, and possession of fully autos that are not obtainable in the United States. As inside of the YSL mansion, particularly in young Thugg's bedroom, there would be found several firearms that the FBI don't even understand how he got them. As to understand the extent of young Thugg and how he was in the Atlanta area, listen to the first court hearing of his trial.
He's the one directing traffic. He is the one they're all afraid of. He's the one that's King Slime. He is the most dangerous of the 28, Judge. And I implore you not to grant him a bond. He is dangerous. If he gets a burner, Judge, and the court may know this, a lot of the communications that Mr. Williams is on FaceTime, because it's not traceable, it's not trackable. Judge, I will also say that we have taken proffers from fellow from Mr. Williams. Some are on this indictment, some are not. They have stated uniformly that Mr. Williams is dangerous. They are afraid of him, that if they cross him, he will them and their family. And they were very clear about that.
With how his name is treated, young Thugg remains in jail, which he will be for a very long time, considering the Atlanta DA now wants all rappers from the Atlanta area for RICO.
An in-depth investigation. Recent months, you've had 2 high-profile racketeering cases. There are going to be more.
Over the next 60 days, you'll see 2 more.
However, Pooh Shiesty won't be in jail for much longer. You see, after setting up a robbery via Instagram DMs, Shiesty was sentenced to 63 months inside a jail with the chance of an early release on good behavior. In the original crime documents, it begins with Shiesty and company setting up a meet for high-end sneakers, including narcotics, as Pooh Shiesty is seen arriving to the meet driving a bright green McLaren. While awaiting the seller's arrival, Shiesty and his boy create a plan to instead steal the items against these 2 men rather than pay for them, as once they would arrive, the seller gave Shiesty the sneakers while he was sitting in his green McLaren. Shiesty was doing a legit check on the pair of sneakers, giving his boy enough time to get into position for what is about to go down. While negotiating on the price for the goods, a small argument then brewed up between Shiesty and the main seller. Things began to get heated, and then Pooh Shiesty was seen grabbing a firearm from out of his waistband. This is then when you see the 2 men beginning to sprint away from Shiesty, trying to duck behind their own vehicle for cover, but sadly they were not quick enough, as Shiesty ended up hitting both of them, hitting one in the backside, including one in the hip. While Pooh Shiesty was handling the 2 men, Shiesty's boy was in charge of grabbing any extra sneakers that was inside of their vehicle and then throwing them all into the green McLaren for the getaway. With his boy getting back into the passenger seat of the car, Shiesty was then seen hopping into his side of the vehicle. However, while closing his butterfly door that's on his McLaren, a Louis Vuitton bag fell out of the side door pocket. With the bag falling onto the ground, it would play a huge role into how Shiesty was end up being caught by the feds. However, right after the robbery, Shiesty then went straight to the closest Miami airport, rented a private jet, and flew straight out of Miami, Florida. However, while on the private jet, Shiesty would post to his Instagram a selfie flexing the all-green McLaren that he just committed an armed robbery in, making sure the feds were able to catch him within roughly a day.
The town of Bay Harbor Island says you're wanted with He's also charged with armed robbery. Their affidavit saying the 2 left the state in a private jet.
After sitting in jail for just 1 day, he then bonded out for $30,000. He was then on bond for 2 months, and then Shiesty was then arrested once again and sentenced.
Mr. Williams, you were arrested for pursuant to an arrest warrant. It was issued June 3rd. It's charging you. You have two attorneys here, or is it? I'm sorry, two attorneys in the state. Go ahead. You want to announce again?
Brad Cohen and Sam Zegny for the defendant.
Have you had a chance to review the arrest warrant?
Yes, Judge, we have.
However, a rapper that is sitting in jail that many forgot about is 42 Dugg. The famous rap lawyer posted on his Instagram after 42 Dugg was arrested by the feds, explaining this.
Did the back and forth between 42 Dugg and Tekashi 6ix9ine cause the feds to escalate their pursuit of 42 Dugg? I would actually say absolutely yes. Let me explain this to you. March 12th is when 42 Dugg was supposed to report to the federal prison. It wasn't until April 29th that the feds actually went out and started looking for him. What happened on April 26th and April 27th? The Dugg and Tekashi 6ix9ine internet exchange about starting a boxing.
As how 42 Dugg was arrested all began with 6ix9ine pulling up on a man named Lil Perkio, otherwise known as Lil Durk's twin. 42 Dugg says, and I quote, "I hate when people do stuff to good people. Rats involving white boys and street stuff. People be lames and could have pulled up on so many others, but they pull up on a kid with nothing to do with nothing. Y'all can never expect non-street people to understand the streets. These people running up trying to ruin his life knowing a real man would deal with you." With Tekashi 6ix9ine and 42 Dugg beefing back and forth, this would then go viral online. 6ix9ine is still technically a federal informant from his time snitching against 9 Trey. So whenever 6ix9ine gets into online beef, the feds are quick to look over it. When doing 42 Dugg's profile on an examination period, the feds realized that 42 Dugg had an arrest warrant as 42 Dugg failed to surrender himself into jail for a separate case. A manhunt was then created by Special Forces police team to find the Detroit rapper, as he was supposed to serve only a 6-month prison sentence. Sadly, with 42 Dugg hiding from law enforcement until beefing with 6ix9ine, his new prison sentence is now around 5 years.